Senator Siewert.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I seek leave to take note of the Australian Human Rights Commission Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner's report, Social Justice and Native Title report.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
Thank you.
Senator Siewert.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy Chair. This is a very important report and, in fact, a very comprehensive report that looks at social justice, the year in review. It looks at the Racial Discrimination Act and the proposed changes to racial hatred provisions, talks about native title, creating safer communities and nation self-determination in a new era of Indigenous governance, and then giving effect to the Declaration. Now, I won't have time to give this report full justice, but there are some important areas that I thought it was particularly important to talk about, and that is, one, the comments that the Social Justice Commissioner, Mr McGoodall, makes on the Indigenous Advancement Strategy and some of the budget measures and closing the gap in particular, because these are so critical. He makes comments under issues related to the budget measures for this year and talks about the Indigenous Advancement Strategy and makes comments like, for Indigenous affairs, it has been a year characterised by deep funding cuts, the radical reshaping of existing programs and services and the development of new programs and services. Information on the transfer arrangements has been scant, with minimal involvement of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. There was little or no consultation with those working on the ground about which programs and activities were best kept together and which departments were best placed to administer them. Importantly, it then goes on to say, importantly and unfortunately, this meant $534.4 million was cut from the Indigenous programs from the PM&C and from the Department of Health over 5 years, and goes on to list some of those programs. He then goes on to say, it is disappointing that savings from the rationalisation of Indigenous programs and services will not be reinvested in Indigenous affairs and closing the gap initiatives. In addition to the IAS, health funding for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander specific programs, grants and activities will be reinforced under the Indigenous Australians Health program. This is part of drawing up a new methodology for funding Indigenous health flagged by the budget. The methodology needs to, he goes on to say, needs to align with the health plan, and the government must engage with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health sector during this process. This means respectful engagement with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, particularly with the sector leadership, including in areas of criminal justice, employment, education, early childhood and economic development. Such engagement has been conspicuous by its absence before and after the announcement of the budget. This should be rectified as a matter of urgency. These are the words of the Social Justice Commissioner. He also talks about legal aid, and notably says that this includes a $13.4 million cut to the Indigenous aid and policy reform program. These cuts will take effect from the 1st of July 2015, and he talks about the programs that will be cut funding. He says the government indicated that any cuts to ATSLs would only affect policy reform and advocacy work, not frontline legal services. He then says, however, the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Legal Service, which is NATSLs, has highlighted that the value of Indigenous legal service is that they provide strategic and well-informed advice about effective law and justice policies to government, leading to a reduction in the incarceration of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The NATSLs have also stated concerns that the withdrawal of funding for law reform and advocacy positions will result in solicitors and legal officers currently providing frontline services assuming this work. He also talks about the cuts to Congress, National Congress, and he said despite the IAC, sorry, this is about the Prime Minister's Indigenous Advisory Council and Congress, and he says despite claims that the IAC was never intended to replace Congress, the coalition government created the IAC and removed the forward allocation of $15 million from Congress within a few months of coming to power. Further, the Prime Minister has met monthly with the IAC chair, as stipulated in terms of reference during this reported period. In contrast, Congress has reported that the Prime Minister has not met with the co-chairs of Congress at all since the election. He says there is little doubt that IAC members, being an impressive array of talent and experience, bring experience to Indigenous issues. However, the different roles played by the IAC as a strategic advisor and Congress as a representative voice should be clarified and understood. Many of the other areas of this report highlight concerns and highlight important points such as the need for justice reinvestment, the need for better consultation for the Aboriginal, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It is clear from this report the Prime Minister for Aboriginal Affairs has a long way to go before he can put in place policies that address Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander disadvantage.